The Pfizer-Allergan merger is the biggest pharma merger ever and creates the largest healthcare company on the globe. But is this merger just about the taxes? Another company trying to avoid the U.S. system? Terry Chong, Global Healthcare Analyst, TD Asset Management, joins me to discuss. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you for having me.
So, to take the extreme example of the politicians, is this merger just Pfizer trying to beat that U.S. tax system?
I don't believe so. Pfizer is acquiring Allergan's assets, which are very strong growing, and you'd be familiar with some of the products. It is a global leader in dermatology and eye care with products such as Botox and Restasis. They have about 15% of their sales in North America, and Pfizer has over 60% of their sales outside of the US. So that'll allow Allergan to put some of their products into Pfizer's global sales base.
So do you think this merger would have taken place if there wasn't a tax benefit at all?
The CEO of Pfizer has commented on that when he was asked that question directly. He says it's an important part of the transaction, but he would still try to acquire Allergan, but it might be at a slightly different price.
Okay, so you talked about some of the benefits. What about the products? What kind of thing are we looking at?
So Pfizer obviously is one of the global leading pharmaceutical companies and has got products such as Viagra, which many people would be familiar with. And then it has other products such as in oncology. They have eye brands for breast cancer. They have a consumer franchise, which includes Centrum multivitamins. And they have other important products such as Prevnar 13, which is a vaccine for pneumococcal viruses.
And so I guess it happens both ways. If Pfizer gets Allergan's products, Allergan gets Pfizer's access to products?
Correct.
Are there any other benefits to this?
There are other benefits in terms of just the tax inversion elements. And this has to do with the tax inversion element within Pfizer that the politicians are talking about. And it boils under two different issues. One is just a type of tax system that the U.S. has in terms of corporate taxes relative to the rest of the world. And second of all, it's just the level of taxation that the U.S. has relative to the rest of the world.
So how is that U.S. system different?
So in the U.S., they have a system referred to as worldwide tax system. And other countries, such as Canada and Ireland, have corporate taxes based upon the territorial tax system. And the major difference, essentially, is how the profits generated outside of the country of domicile are taxed. So in the U.S., under the worldwide tax system, you're paying taxes on the local tax rate for profits generated there, and when you bring it back into the U.S. Under the territorial tax system that we have in Canada, it's just taxed in the local jurisdiction.
So this will then benefit them when they go through with this merger because they'll have access to a bit more cash, is that right?
Correct, and that's the second benefit, is the cash that's generated outside of the country of domicile will be taxed at a different rate. I'll give you an example. Say we have a company that's based in the U.S. and has 50% of its profit generated in Canada. When that company decides to bring that cash back, it'll pay the 26% local tax in Canada and also additional tax to bring it back into the U.S. And that could be upwards of 13%. For a same company that's sort of domiciled in Ireland, they'll just pay the 26% tax in Canada and then be free to use that cash for share repurchases or dividends going forward.
So it's pretty significant gain then.
Definitely. Let's take it for Pfizer's example and say in 2014, they recorded a tax expense of approximately $3.1 billion, which was around 25%. Under the current regime, if you re-domicile in Ireland, they're forecasting a 17 to 18% tax rate. That would be a tax bill of around $2.1 billion, or $1 billion difference.
That's pretty big then. I guess that's one big reason to,
yes, definitely,
to do this kind of a deal. How likely is this to go through?
It's quite likely. There's three different things that it certainly has to happen. One is a review by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, just as to see if there's any sort of anti-competitive results of this merger. Second of all, there'll be a vote with the Pfizer shareholders and then the Allergan shareholders. And third, we'll look at the current regulations in terms of IRS and U.S. Treasuries. But at this current rate and the structure of this deal, we don't anticipate any sort of issues with that because Allergan will be 44% of the final transaction of the new Pfizer PLC. And that's over the 40% level that's sort of key in this transaction.
Now, would you buy this merged company, or is there too much risk that the government will step in?
There's always that risk in terms of the U.S. government stepping in there, but it would sort of require the U.S. House of Congress, Senate, and presidency to introduce new legislation.
So it'll take a while.
Definitely, and in this current environment of partisan politics in the U.S., that would be a unlikely scenario at this particular point. And in terms of holding Pfizer going forward, definitely, just because we currently hold Pfizer, they'll have increased access to faster growing products in Allergan. They'll have a more tax efficient structure going forward as Pfizer PLC. And third, they'll have increased access to cash that they're generating outside of the U.S.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Terry.
Great. Thank you very much.
That was Terry Chong, Global Healthcare Analyst, TD Asset Management. I'm MaryAnn. Thanks for watching.